Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here, General, and thank you for your service to our country. I want to start by just noting I have serious concerns about our military remaining neutral in the political sphere. If confirmed, you have a duty not only to protect the country, but also to protect the reputation of the military by your words and actions, of course. Previous actions and comments by some in our military command have thrust our military into political issues that are both distracting and inappropriate. As we get increasingly concerning reporting about China's military growth and ambitions, I fear that the People's Republic of China poses a threat to our country like none other we've had in our history, both militarily, economically, in their designs. A potential conflict with China would necessarily rely heavily on the Air Force, and our preparedness for such a scenario is my chief concern. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that. General Alvin, your nomination comes at a time when the threat posed by Communist China has reached critical levels. It also comes at a time when the Air Force is at a crossroads for decommissioning old platforms while also investing in future platforms like the B-21, which is critical in deterring PRC aggression. I look forward to hearing more about the direction you envision for the Air Force and how those decisions we're making today will strengthen deterrence in the Indo-Pacific. The first thing I want to touch on is during the August recess, had a chance to get to Whiteman, which we're very proud of in Missouri, of course. And we look forward to those B-21s making their way there. But there's also the 442nd Fighter Wing is there. And I know this is not a new issue, but I do want to hear from you. There's a lot of trained people there that have worked on the A-10 over the years. When do you think the Air Force will finalize some of the transition plans for the A-10, like at the 442nd? Where do you see this moving? Because obviously, once you lose kind of a trained workforce, it's very hard to bring that back. And I know that follow-on mission is really important. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, thank you for that, Senator. And of course, Whiteman it's a crown jewel. And I think the people around Whiteman have gotten used to seeing interesting-looking platforms flying around and being impressed by them, and so I'm sure the B-21 will not disappoint. To your point about the 442nd, Senator, I think it has the distinction of really serving well with the A-10, and we know that is a platform that does not necessarily find its place in the future with the fight with China. As we look towards working with the Reserve Command and how we can leverage not only perhaps an association on the B-21, but for future missions. In any of these, the first thing that we want to do is see if there is an appropriate flying mission. If there's not an appropriate flying mission, we at least want a continuing mission. So as we go forward, I believe the A-10 divestment in Whiteman isn't until later in the fight-up, but we will, I commit to you, if I'm confirmed, we will be in dialogue about opportunities and the pathway that we're approaching, looking at the total force laydown as we're looking at a force design, which is potentially going to have a larger overall Air Force footprint, but how we can ensure that total force, to your point, Senator, that the great skills and capabilities that are resident in those maintainers and flyers are not lost as we have this very critical time in the fight with China.
Well, and as you know, in just talking with them, the longer, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think it's important to note, the longer that goes on, people make decisions in the reserve of where they go, and so I think it's important, obviously, to kind of move that along just for some certainty. But as I do want to, I have to ask you. I touched on this during my opening remarks. I have, which is not news here today, but serious concerns about injecting politics into our military. I think it's incredibly divisive. There's no place in it, and I'm not espoused, and I don't want one particular ideology to take hold. I just feel like the military is there to be a lethal fighting force that needs to be prepared. And so some of the things we've seen over the last couple years are concerning. And the Air Force in particular, some of the top brass have waded into this headlong. General Alvin, you are not a signatory to this, but I do want to ask you, last year, General Brown was a signatory to a memo that advocated for racial quotas for Air Force officers. Can you share your thoughts with that August memo?
Senator, I will. I'll share my thoughts. My thoughts are that our focus has always been about fielding the best, most capable, most lethal Air Force. And my understanding of that memo was that it was designed to reach further out into the corners of the country to find the best available talent but we are a meritocracy, and we are one that's focused on lethality and readiness. And to the point you made earlier in your statement, Senator, which couldn't be more correct, is that we have a growing threat, and we have to focus and we have to maintain our readiness and our focus on a sense of urgency on being able to meet that. And so it is and will be, if confirmed, my continued focus is ensuring the readiness and the lethality of this force to meet the threat and making sure our airmen stay focused on that as well.
Thank you, and I share your desire to reach out to as many people as possible. And I haven't heard anything from your testimony that you'd be advocating for racial quotas again. I think this is a poison writ large, but certainly in our military. So I appreciate your answer.
But, Senator, I will not, and if confirmed, I do not intend to at all ever advocate for racial quotas.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.